Hello, and welcome back to the Faith Infusion Podcast. I'm Minister Demetria Lee, and I am so thankful you're here with me today. Today's episode is for our weary warriors, the silent intercessors, the ones who show up day after day with consistency and kindness, but often feel overlooked and underappreciated. It's for the person doing the right thing without recognition, for the one who keeps praying, serving, working, and pressing forward even when it feels like no one notices. Today, my topic is strength in the shadows. This is for you if you've ever had to wipe your own tears, encourage your own heart, and keep it moving when the silence around you got loud. If you've ever asked, does anyone even see me? Does what I'm doing even matter? Let me tell you, yes, it does matter. And more importantly, yes, you matter. Because the truth is, some of the most powerful growth will happen in the shadows. In the places where you're not getting praise, where you feel overlooked, where you're carrying the weight quietly. But here's the truth. Just because it's hidden doesn't mean it's not holy. And just because it's silent doesn't mean it's not sacred. Today, I want to show you how to lean into God's strength, even when you feel forgotten by people. Because your purpose doesn't stop when the crowd gets quiet. Sometimes that's exactly when God is preparing you for the platform you didn't even know you'd stand on. When you feel unseen, let's be real, it can be painful to feel unseen, especially when you're doing your very best. You're praying, you're serving, you're showing up, you're loving people, and still it seems like no one notices. Psalm 142, the 4th verse says, I looked on my right hand and beheld, but there was no man that would know me. Refuge failed me. No man cared for my soul. That's raw. That's real. And it reminds us that even great men and women of God have felt abandoned at some point in time. But I want to remind you, your worth isn't proven by visibility. The shadows aren't punishment, they're preparation. And sometimes being hidden is God's way of protecting you, His way of molding you, His way of building your endurance. So don't despise your hidden season. Learn in it, grow in it, and know that God is still writing your story. Let's look at some stories of a few biblical moments where strength was found in silence, in hiding, in darkness, and God still moved. David at Ziklag. David was in one of the darkest, most desperate moments of his life. After being rejected by the Philistines and returning to Ziklag, he found the city burned to the ground. The Amalekites had raided it, taken their families, and left nothing but devastation. His wives were gone. His children were gone. His home was destroyed. And to make it worse, the very men who had fought beside him, his own army, were so grieved and bitter that they spoke of stoning him. Everything around David was in ashes. His leadership was being questioned. His loved ones had been taken. His men's loyalty was broken. He didn't have applause. He had betrayal. He didn't have celebration. He had sorrow. But what did David do? 1 Samuel 30th chapter and the 6th verse says, But David encouraged himself in the Lord his God. He didn't wait for someone else to lift him up. He didn't wait for a word from a prophet or a sign in the sky. In the middle of his pain, he reached for the presence of God. He stirred up his own spirit. He reminded himself of who God was and who he was in God. See, David teaches us something critical. Sometimes your own audience is God, and that's enough. You don't need anybody else. In the ruins, in the rejections, in the silence, David found his strength, not from what he saw, but from who he knew. He encouraged himself, and it was that encouragement that propelled him into recovery and full restoration. His story didn't end in the ashes, it began there. Now let's look at the woman with the issue of blood. Her story is found in Luke, the 8th chapter, the 43rd verse through the 48th verse. This woman had been bleeding for 12 long years, and we complain about 7 days. But she had been bleeding for 12 long years. That's over a decade of being ritualistically unclean, socially ostracized, physically weak, and emotionally exhausted. She had spent everything she had on doctors, and she still wasn't getting any better. She was getting worse. Her condition wasn't just medical, it was social, it was emotional, and it was spiritual. She wasn't even allowed in the temple. She couldn't touch anyone. She lived in total isolation and shame. But one day, she heard Jesus was coming through town, and something stirred in her spirit. And with no invitation, no audience needed, and no guarantee, she made up her mind. She said to herself, if I can just touch the hem of his garment, I know that I will be made whole. That one internal conversation changed everything in her life. See, she didn't cry out loud. She didn't have a title. She didn't even try to get his attention. She just reached quietly, humbly, and desperately. And in that moment, virtue flowed from Jesus. Luke 8:44 says, she came behind him and touched the border of his garment, and immediately her issue of blood stopped. Jesus stopped and acknowledged her, not because she screamed, but because her faith pulled something out of him. She reached from the shadows and healing found her. This woman teaches us that you don't have to be front and center to touch heaven. Sometimes the strongest faith is the one that moves silently but intentionally. See, her miracle wasn't loud, but it was life-changing. Now let's go to Jehoshaphat. Her story is found in 2 Kings 11 chapter, the 1st verse through the 3rd verse. Jehoshaphat is one of those hidden heroes in the scripture who rarely gets mentioned, but whose actions changed the entire course of history. She was the daughter of King Jehoram and the sister of the late King Ahaziah. When Queen Athaliah found out her son had died, she went on a rampage. She was determined to destroy every royal heir in Judea and claim the throne for herself. Jehoshaphat saw what was happening. She knew what was at stake, and instead of standing by, she acted quietly and courageously. She took the infant Joash, just a baby, and hid him in the temple of the Lord with his nurse. 2 Kings 11 chapter and the 2nd verse says, but Jehoshaphat, the daughter of King Joram, sister of Ahaziah, took Joash, the son of Ahaziah, and stole him from among the king's sons, which were slain. And they hid him and his nurse in the bedchamber from Athaliah, so that he was not slain. For 6 years she hid him in secrecy. 6 years of secrecy, risk, and unwavering faith. She preserved the Davidic line, protected the covenant God made with David, and ensured that a righteous king would one day reign again. There were no angels announcing her name, no trumpets, no public honor, but heaven knew her name. And because she acted in the shadows, a future king was saved, and God's promise continued. Jehoshaphat teaches us that your obedience in obscurity still echoes in eternity. You don't need recognition to be relevant. You don't need validation to be valuable. God does his best work in places no one else can see. Now, what do you do in your hidden season? Let me give you a few keys for finding strength while you're still in the shadows, in those quiet, uncertain, and stretching seasons where God is working behind the scenes. First, talk to your soul like it matters. This isn't just positive thinking. This is a soul care thing. Speak over yourself as if your words are water to a thirsty garden. Don't wait on others to affirm what God has already said about you. Say it boldly. I am still growing. God sees me. My season is coming. I was built for this. Remind yourself of what God has promised, even when you don't feel it. David talked to his own soul, and so can you. Number 2, count every victory, even the small one. You didn't shout back when you wanted to. That's maturity. You chose to worship when you felt empty. That's a breakthrough. You made the bed, brushed your teeth, sent that email, or logged into work when you wanted to disappear. That's movement. Don't dismiss the small wins because heaven doesn't. Third, write your own encouragement. If nobody sends you a word, write one yourself. Journal what you want to see. Declare what you believe God is doing, even if your situation hasn't changed yet. It's coming. Put sticky notes on your mirror, scriptures in your phone as reminder, truth in your heart. Become your own prophet in the hallway before the doors even open. Prophesy to yourself before it even happens. 4, create altars, not stages. Because we live in a world obsessed with visibility. But God still honors the secret place. Don't rush to be seen. Run to be surrendered. Build a place of prayer and worship that no one else sees but Him. Because when the time comes, God will reveal publicly what you built in private. My overseer, Scotty Cole, he told me when I was discouraged, he said, you are building a body of work. Some people wait till the door opens to start the work. But when you start the work behind the closed door, it protects you and it protects you and produces you at the same time. He told me, he said, I didn't to have the firehouse to be Scotty Cole because he was producing and pastoring college students across the country with no viewers. But what got me was when he said, woman of God, build your body of work. And that gave me encouragement because that day I couldn't encourage myself. That encouraged me to keep going. And remember, when we're in these places that seem isolated and dark and it seems like God is not saying anything, remember that the dark room is where God develops his best. Before a photographer ever reaches display, it has to be developed in a dark room, hidden and processed, carefully handled. That's you. You may feel unseen, but God is shaping you. You may feel delayed, but He's deepening your roots. You're not behind, you're becoming. The shadows aren't the end. They're the place where light begins to break through. So don't rush the process. You got to embrace it. God is doing something beautiful in you even now. So when God uses those shadows to reveal His glory to you, let's talk real for a minute. Some of God's most powerful moves doesn't happen in the spotlight. They happen behind the scenes, in the background, in moments and places where nobody's watching but Him. And that's what makes them so beautiful. There are some lesser known folks in the Bible, people, who weren't on the front lines, who didn't get the mic or the miracles named after them, but we see God use them in mighty ways. Let me introduce you to a few more powerful low-key world changers, okay? Let's talk about Obadiah. His story is found in 1 Kings, the 18th chapter. Not the prophet who wrote a book, but another Obadiah who worked in King Ahab's palace while Jezebel was out here killing off God's prophets. Obadiah was risking his life to hide 100 of them in caves. He was feeding them. He was protecting them, keeping God's remnant alive. Nobody gave him a trophy. He didn't go viral, but his obedience made space for the voice of God to survive. Now, next, let's talk about Anna the prophetess. Her story is found in Luke, the 2nd chapter, the 36th verse through the 38th verse. Anna was a widow who could have chosen bitterness and isolation, but instead, she spent her life in the temple, worshiping and fasting. She didn't preach. She didn't travel. She just showed up. And because she stayed faithful, she got to see baby Jesus, our Savior, with her own eyes. She was one of the very first to recognize the Messiah. Not from a mountaintop, but from years of quiet devotion. Now let's talk about Hushai the Archite. His story is in 2 Samuel, the 15th chapter through the 17th chapter. While everybody remembers David and Absalom, Hushai was the guy who stayed behind when Absalom had rebelled. He pretended to support the rebellion, all while feeding David vital information and confusing Absalom's strategy. He didn't get the glory, but he protected the king. His wisdom helped save a nation, all from behind the scenes. These weren't the headline makers, but they were kingdom shakers. Isaiah 45:3 puts it perfectly. It says, "And I will give thee the treasures of darkness and hidden riches of secret places." Sometimes what God is doing in you is too valuable to be exposed too soon. He's protecting it. He's developing it. He's preparing it. So if you're in a shadow season, listen, I get it. It's frustrating. It's lonely, but don't lose heart. Because you're not being overlooked. You're being fortified. Every quiet act of faith, every behind the scene moment of obedience, every whispered prayer is seen, it's valued, it's recorded in heaven. And when the time is right, God will bring it all to light, not to show off your strength, but to reveal just how much of His glory He built in you while no one else was watching. So keep showing up. Keep trusting. Keep holding on because your shadows are setting the stage for something greater. So you may be in a season that feels invisible, but I came to tell you today, you are so powerful. You're still powerful. You're still valuable. You are chosen. Strength isn't just what you show in public. It's what you build in private. Don't wait for the spotlight. Be faithful in the shadows because the same God who sees in secret will reward you openly. And when he brings you forward, it won't because it won't be because you forced your way up. It'll be because he's been preparing you the whole time. So lift your head, square your shoulders, and tell your heart, I've got strength even here. I'm going to say that again. Lift your head up, square your shoulders, and tell your heart, I've got strength even here, even now. I have the strength to do this. Thank you for hanging out with me today. I don't know what your week has been like or has looked like. Maybe you have been feeling forgotten, or maybe you've been faithfully doing what God called you to do with nobody cheering you on. Maybe you've been clapping for others while wondering when someone will notice you. And if that's you, I see you. And more importantly, God sees you. And let me remind you that the shadows don't disqualify you, they shape you. You're not less than because you're behind the scenes. You are not invisible to God. He sees every effort. He sees every tear. He sees every quiet yes. So don't stop showing up just because the crowd got quiet. Keep building. Keep praying. Keep trusting because heaven is still clapping for you. If today's episode spoke to you in any way, then you'll love my new book, Shattered Thoughts, Restored Purpose. It's a faith-filled journey through healing, restoration, and learning to silence every lie that says you're not enough. If you've ever battled mental warfare, felt stuck in the shadows, or wondered if God could use your pain, this is for you. You can grab a copy right now on Amazon. Just search for Shattered Thoughts, Restored Purpose by Demetria Lee, and that's Lee, L-E-A. Or hit the link. Let it bless you, and don't forget to leave a review. Help someone else find hope too. And until next time, keep walking, keep praying, and remember, there is strength in your shadows. I love you and I'm praying for you. Talk to you soon.